I call to order for the meeting and hereby declare open the 17th session of the Conference of States Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I recognize the presence of Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, who attends this meeting on behalf of the Secretary General of the United Nations. I extend my warmest welcome to you, all distinguished delegates and participants to this 17th session of the Conference of States Parties to the CRPD. Pursuant to Article 34, Paragraph 5 of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the Rule 12 of the Rules of Procedure of the Conference of States Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD/CSP/2008/3, the necessary quorum for the meeting is 2/3 of the States Parties. As there are 191 States Parties to the Convention, the quorum is 128 States Parties. We are checking the quorum. I was informed by the Secretariat that the required quorum for the conference is obtained. With this, we now proceed to the adoption of the agenda. May I take it that the conference wishes to adopt the provisional agenda as contained in document CRPD/CSP/2024/1. I see no objection. It is so decided. We shall now proceed to Agenda Item 3, Organization of Work. The first matter shall be NGO accreditation and registration. A list of 6 non-governmental organizations requesting accreditation to the conference was circulated to all States Parties on May 10, 2024 for approval by consensus, in accordance with the Rule 25 of the Rules of Procedure of the Conference. The Secretariat has received no notification against these requests for accreditation. Therefore, it is understood that the list of NGO applications for accreditation is approved, and hence these NGOs may participate as observers in the current and future sessions of the Conference of States Parties. It is so decided. Distinguished delegates, in keeping with past practice, the conference also wishes to welcome the participation of national human rights institutions, including the Global Alliance for National Human Rights Institutions, as observers in the session of the Conference of States Parties. Ladies and gentlemen, the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities was adopted in 2006 and came into force in May 2008. Over the years, we are pleased to witness a stable trend towards universal ratification of the CRPD. To date, we have already 191 States Parties demonstrating our strong commitment to the rights and advancement of persons with disabilities. Taking this occasion, I would like to extend our warm congratulations and special welcome to Solomon Island, Cameroon, Liechtenstein, and Bhutan, which recently ratified and joined us in this family as a state party to the convention after the conclusion of the 16th session of the conference. Colleagues, the international commitment to equality and empowerment of persons with disability has been strengthened in the past decades since the adoption of the CRPD and the 2030 Agenda. Our states parties and the international community have been taking steps to implement the Convention. Progress has been made in many of our countries and by the United Nations. Yet, there exist significant challenges and gaps. The latest data and evidences from the newly released UN report on disability and development shows that persons with disability continue to be left far behind. The existing socio-economical inequalities between persons with disabilities and their peers without disabilities remain huge, and many sustainable development goals would likely not be able to be achieved unless current efforts and progress accelerated. Much still needs to be done and can be done to make a difference in the lives of over 1.3 billion persons with disabilities worldwide. Over the years, our annual Conference of States Parties has been steadily growing and become one of the most important global forums on disability. This year, our 17th session of the conference is taking place at another critical juncture, while member states and the whole international community are taking action to address a myriad of multifaceted and interconnected crises, old and new, that are affecting our countries and people, including persons with disabilities. At the same time, the Summit of the Future is scheduled to take place in the coming September. Member states are accelerating their efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals while also starting the consideration of strategies to move beyond the 2030 timeline. Our conference will offer a unique opportunity for us to collectively reflect on experiences and lessons learned over time, identify existing gaps in implementation of the Convention and the 2030 Agenda, through enhanced efforts to further disability inclusion, including strengthening our policy and improving our practices on the ground. In the coming few days, under the overarching theme, Rethinking Disability Inclusion, at the current international juncture and ahead of the Summit of the Future, we will be able to focus our deliberations on some pertinent issues, including, first, international cooperation to promote technology innovations and transfer for an inclusive future. Second, persons with disabilities in situations of risk and humanitarian emergencies. And third, promoting the rights of persons with disability to decent work and sustainable livelihood. I kindly invite all delegations, civil society, friends to actively participate in and contribute to these discussions. And we also look forward to make full use of this unique opportunity to jointly explore ways for future strengthening international cooperation and multi-stakeholders, partnership among states parties, United Nations, international development institutions, and civil society, especially persons with disabilities and their organizations. Now let me say a few words in my native language, Arabic, from the perspective of Tunisia. حضرات السيدات والسادة، إنه لمن دواعي الفخر لتونس أن تتولى رئاسة المؤتمر ال17 للدول الأعضاء في اتفاقية حقوق الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة، الذي يكتسي هذه السنة أهمية خاصة باعتبار الظرف الدولي الراهن والتحديات الماثلة والمستجدة، وكذلك في أفق انعقاد قمة المستقبل خلال شهر سبتمبر القادم، ومع تقدم مختلف مسارات المفاوضات الجارية حالياً لإعادة تفعيل العمل متعدد الأطراف والتأسيس لمرحلة ووسائل جديدة في التعاطي مع كل التحديات، وبما يضمن عدم ترك أحد يتخلف عن الركب، وفي مقدمة هؤلاء الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة الذين هم أبطال تحدي الصعوبات التي لا يجب النظر إليها على أنها عجز، فهم جزء أصيل من مجتمعاتنا وينتمون لهذا الكون ولهم دورهم وقادرون على القيام به على أكمل وجه. ومن هذه الرؤية كانت مسألة حقوق الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة في تونس دوما أولوية وطنية، حيث ارتقى بها دستور 25 جويلية 2022 إلى المرتبة الدستورية من خلال الفصل 54 الذي يؤكد أن على الدولة أن تحمي الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة من كل تمييز وتتخذ كل التدابير التي تضمن لهم الاندماج الكامل في المجتمع. كما تحرص مختلف القوانين والتشريعات وتوجهات الدولة على أن يكونوا مساهمين فاعلين في صنع القرار ومتمتعين بكل حقوقهم، ولا سيما الحق في التعليم والصحة والتشغيل والتمكين الاقتصادي والترفيه والرياضة، كما تحرص على ضمان ممارستهم حياة كريمة وعلى حمايتهم من كل أشكال التمييز والإقصاء والتهميش. وانطلاقا من رؤيتها الشاملة لحقوق الإنسان التي لا تتجزأ، واعتبارها الإنسان الغاية والوسيلة لكل مشروع حضاري، ستواصل تونس جهودها على كل المستويات الوطنية والإقليمية والدولية من أجل مزيد الارتقاء بحقوق الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة وإدماجهم في كل مناحي الحياة العامة ومسارات التنمية التي لا يمكن أن تتحقق وتستديم بدونهم. ولا يمكننا في مثل هذه المناسبة الهامة ألا نستذكر الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة في مناطق النزاع، ولا سيما في قطاع غزة وبقية الأراضي الفلسطينية المحتلة، حيث يتعرضون لأقصى أشكال التنكيل والعدوان. مرة أخرى تحية إكبار وتقدير إلى كل الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة الذين ما فتئوا يبهروننا ويلهموننا بقوة إرادتهم للحياة وتحديهم لكل الصعوبات، وبإنجازاتهم وطاقتهم الإيجابية وعزيمتهم وروح العطاء والأمل التي تميزهم. مرة أخرى أشكركم على حضوركم وعلى كل ما تقومون به، ولا أقول لا شيء عنكم بدونكم، بل لا شيء عنا جميعا بدونكم. I won't say nothing for you without you, but nothing for all of us without you. Together we can do more and better to advance our shared mission, the full realization of equal rights and inclusive development for all persons with disabilities all over the world. I thank you. I now have the great honor to invite Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, to deliver a statement on behalf of the Secretary General of the United Nations. You have the floor, Ms. Amina.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, friends in civil society, ladies and gentlemen, it is my real pleasure to join you at the opening of the 17th session of the Conference of State Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. I extend a warm welcome to delegations representing the state parties. I also want to welcome our friends and partners from civil society who do so much to advocate for persons with disabilities day in, day out, year in, year out. I welcome all persons with disabilities and other participants that are gathered here at this conference. I'm deeply moved as this important constituency demonstrates to everyone the importance of multilateralism in turning up to be heard and to act. Ladies and gentlemen, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, adopted 18 years ago, has been a landmark achievement. Its near universal ratification is a testament to our shared global commitment to protecting the rights of persons with disabilities. The Convention was only a start of a much longer process of change and action. Our work is not yet done. We must continue translating this commitment into results in people's lives. And that's what this conference is all about. In particular, this conference will address the rights of persons with disabilities through three key areas: technology, humanitarian emergencies, and decent work. The new Disability and Development Report of 2024, which was pre-launched yesterday, provides updates on our work in these and other areas. While the report paints a picture of progress, it also highlights some of the glaring gaps that we must accelerate progress. First, on technology, the global need for assistive technology remains largely unmet. 2.5 billion people globally need to use at least one type of assistive technology, with access ranging from as low as 3% in low-income countries to 90% in some high-income countries. Part of the challenge is a lack of technology transfer, with about 80% of innovations in assistive technology being created in just 3 countries: China, Japan, and the United States. Another challenge is funding, with only 0.1% of disability-inclusive bilateral aid devoted to expanding access to assistive technologies. Across the board, we need substantially increased investments into assistive technologies that enable persons with disabilities to access education, earn a living, and participate fully in their communities. Second, the humanitarian emergencies. Persons with disabilities and humanitarian emergencies, such as natural disasters and armed conflict, continue to be left behind. Currently, 39% of persons with disabilities would have much difficulty or would simply be unable to evacuate in a situation of risk or during a humanitarian emergency. This is unacceptable. This percentage has remained almost the same since 2013. Persons with disabilities must be included in official disaster planning and preparedness, and they must be so in the processes to mitigate risks and barriers that persons with disabilities face. From accessing evacuation, response and recovery, to essential services such as food, water, sanitation, and health, the needs of persons with disabilities must be included and reflected. Children with disabilities are especially vulnerable and face grave risks of being left behind the day after, as we have witnessed years ago in Sierra Leone and today in Gaza. This is particularly relevant as we celebrate the 5th anniversary of the landmark Security Council Resolution 2475, which for the first time committed to address the disproportionate impact of armed conflict and related humanitarian crises on persons with disabilities. Third, decent work. Persons with disabilities experience greater risks of poverty and continue to be marginalized in their societies, in part due to the barriers in employment and livelihoods. The gap in employment between persons with and without disabilities is nearly 30 percentage points, a figure largely unchanged from the first Disability and Development Report that was published 6 years ago in 2018. Moreover, persons with disabilities receive lower wages and are largely found in the informal economy and in self-employment, where work conditions are often more precarious. Although 79% of countries have laws to protect persons with disabilities against discrimination in hiring, these protections are not always enforced and have not so far translated into more positive employment outcomes. We must more effectively address inclusive hiring practices. We must guarantee the equality of persons with disabilities and their right to decent work and equal opportunity in employment. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the gaps are enormous, but we do have the tools and the framework to guide us. We must be clear-eyed about the challenges before us and redouble our focus on closing these gaps. This 17th session of the Conference of the State Parties is an opportune moment to do exactly this and to build our work over the years as we accelerate towards the SDGs in 2030. The Summit of the Future in September is a further opportunity to carry out our work. The summit will offer a once-in-a-generation chance to strengthen multilateral cooperation on critical issues to address major gaps in global governance and financing development. This must include the full participation of persons with disabilities and ensure that the commitments and the aspirations on the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities become a tangible reality for everyone. Across all of this essential work, I look forward to working with people in this room and around the world. We fully commit in our RC system, where we have our UN country teams at the country level, to including people with disabilities in our work. Across all of this essential work, let's push forward. Let's continue striving to ensure that the rights of persons with disabilities are translated into progress and results everywhere. Finally, let us pause for a moment in recognition of the ferocious conflicts that are affecting our world today, in Sudan, in Ukraine, and in Palestine. These continue to cause unimaginable sufferings, particularly for women, for children, and persons with disabilities. In Palestine, we continue to call for immediate humanitarian ceasefire, lest we continue to see more and more children left behind with disabilities. Excellencies, friends, we are surely united in working for an end to leaving people with disabilities behind, not just here, but around the world, as we strive to deliver the 2030 Agenda. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your statement. I now ask Secretariat to screen a video message received from His Excellency, Mr. Dennis Francis, President of the General Assembly.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I extend my gratitude to His Excellency Tarek Ladeb, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Tunisia and President of the Conference of States Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, for inviting me to address you today. Unfortunately, competing commitments have summoned me away from New York, making my participation possible only virtually. The numbers of those affected by the differently abled plight speak for themselves, as over 1.3 billion individuals worldwide are persons with disabilities. They are among the most vulnerable populations, enduring disproportionate levels of poverty, marginalization, and discrimination. Women and girls with disabilities are particularly vulnerable. But we must also acknowledge the many positive examples of acts by persons with disabilities who continue to inspire us with their courage and determination, reminding us of what can be achieved when they are empowered and supported to reach their ultimate potential. Stories such as that of Antonio Fantin, a prolific swimmer and Paralympic champion, who welcomed to New York this past week. This issue deeply resonates with me, and we must, in transforming into inclusive societies, do all that we can to ensure that other priorities can never come at the expense of those who need to be always a priority. Accordingly, we must be proactive in fully implementing the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Governments must lead by example in upholding the Convention's principles to realize the rights of persons with disabilities by giving expression substantively to the motto, "Nothing about us without us." We must ensure that persons with disabilities are actively involved in all aspects of life and on an equal basis with others. The CRPD is the first comprehensive human rights treaty with a clear social development dimension, advancing disability rights worldwide. With 190 states parties, I am delighted that its near universal ratification reflects growing global solidarity with and commitment to the rights of peoples with disabilities. Over the years, this Conference of States Parties has become the most important forum to promote and to protect these rights. As important as they are by way of taking stock of the global status of meaningfully implementing the CPRD, your deliberations today assume enhanced significance as feedstock into the preparations for the Summit of the Future in September, which offers a unique opportunity to reignite multilateral action for impactful results and solutions, including the promotion and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, as I conclude, I reassure you that as President of the General Assembly, I am fully committed to ensuring the United Nations is a universally acceptable space. To this end, you may be aware that I appointed the permanent representatives of Panama and the United States as co-chairs of the Steering Committee on Accessibility. With their support, together with that of the Secretariat, we continue to make improvements here at UN headquarters, as evidenced by the Accessibility Gate, which now allows persons with disabilities to enter the premises without assistance, and the rostrum in the GA Hall, which is also fully accessible. And with much thanks to the Republic of Korea's contribution, we now have an accessibility center right here at UN headquarters. In collaboration with DGACM, the Office of the President of the General Assembly has organized training sessions on accessibility and sensitivity awareness for delegates and UN staff over the past 2 years. I propose to continue and to encourage this practice to foster an inclusive working environment for all during the remainder of my tenure, while acknowledging that more, much more, remains to be done. To make tangible progress, I call on governments and stakeholders to mainstream the rights of persons with disabilities, incorporating their views in all policy design and implementation. Collaborate with persons with disabilities to create and deliver solutions in every country and community, and to act with urgency to uphold the rights of all persons with disabilities. I thank you.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Dennis Francis, President of the General Assembly, for his statement, and now kindly invite Ms. Gertrude Oferiwa-Fefuame, Chairperson of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disability, to approach the rostrum to make a statement.
Thank you, President. Excellency, Madam Deputy Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. We are actually in an extremely important juncture for disability inclusion in the development agenda as we are getting to the Summit of the Future, the Pact of the Future, and the 2 annexes now as pivotal documents that would shape our common vision of development agenda even beyond 2030. It's therefore critical that existing disability rights language in current drafts are retained and built on in the final negotiations. The committee has continued holding dialogues with state parties, with more than 130 dialogue held so far. We are learning lessons around matters influencing the enjoyment of rights of persons with disabilities. It is important to continue addressing these recurrent issues, including 1, the need for effective participation of persons with disabilities, particularly most marginalized groups, gender mainstreaming. Number 2, in policy design and implementation. 3, the situation of children and youth with disabilities, including accessing inclusive education adequately funded. 4, social protection flaws as we prepare for the World Social Summit in 2025. 5, support and care systems in the context of deinstitutionalization processes. 6, the impact of climate change on persons with disabilities. 7, preparedness of disasters, including armed conflicts. 8, the impact of artificial intelligence and neurosciences in the enjoyment by persons with disabilities on their self-determination, autonomy, will, and preferences. The current conference of the State Party will discuss technology innovation of persons with disabilities in situation on risk and decent work and sustainable livelihood. We should please ensure that our discussions ensure and involve around persons with disabilities as agents of change through their active and meaningful consultation in all stages of policy design, implementation, and monitoring. This conference is an opportunity to further consider how digital technologies are evolving in an unprecedented way, posing some human rights and ethical challenges. We need to ensure that persons with disabilities, particularly the most marginalized, participate fully in all spaces where these discussions are taking place to guarantee access to affordable and accessible technologies and the protection of their data and the respect of their family and private life. Please, let us not forget that thousands of persons with disabilities currently living in countries and regions devastated by armed conflict, human-made and climate disasters need our attention. We need to urgently involve them and address the multifaceted risk that has put us off track in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. The committee is developing a general comment on Article 11 of the Convention on Persons with Disabilities affected by situations of risk, including humanitarian emergencies, armed conflict, and disasters. We intend to adopt a draft later this year, and thus will like to invite all state parties and stakeholders to address and engage in this process. With 191 ratifications, the convention has reached universal ratification, has been mentioned already. And I take this opportunity to welcome all the new members. And therefore, it testifies the international commitment to the inclusion of persons with disabilities. However, the meeting time and staffing resources of the committee have not increased since 2014. And the crisis affecting the regular budget of the UN Secretariat is also exacerbating the situation and forcing us to cut down some of our part of our sessions and postponing some considerations. So we call on state parties as a matter of urgency to ensure that, one, provision of adequate funding, allowing meeting time and suitable staffing resources to enable the committee to reach its objective and the availability of online and hybrid participation. 2, support all UN entities move forward in the implementation of the key goals and targets of the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy, particularly in ensuring accessibility of conference facilities, as well as ensuring that key documents of intergovernmental bodies and human rights mechanisms are available in accessible formats, and that protocols related to reasonable accommodation are implemented. On another note, Excellencies, in regard to the election to be held this morning, the committee adopted a statement in March 2024 calling state parties to ensure gender parity and equitable geographical representation. I hope this will be achieved. Let me finish my statement by paying tribute to Sir Robert Martin from New Zealand and 3 other members of the committee that have passed away during the year. They dedicate their lives to the advancement and empowerment of persons with disabilities. May they rest in perfect peace. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fifoame, for your statement. I now kindly invite Ms. Hiba Hagras, the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, to deliver a statement. Ms. Hiba, you have the floor.
Madam Deputy Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates and participants, it is my honor to address you today for the first time as the new United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. I wish to thank the Bureau for the invitation to participate in the opening of the Conference of State Parties to the CRPD on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Allow me at the onset to pay tribute to my 2 predecessors, Catalina de Vandes Aguilar and Gerard Quinn, whom their work was truly inspiring and pioneering. As this year marks the 10th anniversary to the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, I am proud to carry on and build on their achievements over the past decade. Looking back to see a positive trend on the rights of persons with disabilities being more included in debates on global issues where the disability perspective was near to invisible. For instance, in disaster risk reduction, protection of civilians in situations of armed conflict, as well as building systemic disability inclusion across the United Nations system. A lot remains to be done, especially given the global challenges of armed conflict, climate change, and economic crisis. Looking ahead, the world is rapidly changing on many fronts. This creates both opportunities and risks for the protection and the exercise of the rights of persons with disabilities in line with the CRPD, or whether they will result in setback and exclusion. The rapid development of new technologies, including artificial intelligence, can be a game changer for the rights of persons with disabilities, but only if they are included in their design and regulations to prevent discriminatory effects. The COVID-19 pandemic revealed gaps and weaknesses in care and support systems in all regions over the world. If we are truly committed to ensure community inclusion, independent living for persons with disabilities, then significant investment into disability inclusive care and support systems are needed. Much of my future thematic work that I will focus on will be in transformative and systematic changes. Naturally, I see the close link between the CRPD and the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, which are mutually enforcing and complementary. And in the spirit of leaving no one behind, I will be particularly attentive to multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination, as exercised, for instance, by women and girls with disabilities. My first report to the General Assembly later this year will address and the inclusion and participating of persons with disabilities in the SDGs and related discussions. I am particularly committed to raising the disability perspective in process linked to accelerating the implementation of the Sustainable Development Agenda and efforts to bring transformative action for the future of humanity. Here I look with hope to this year's Summit of the Future and the next year's Social Summit as opportunities to strengthen human rights protection in general and especially for persons with disabilities. I particularly urge states to meaningfully consult persons with disabilities, to commit to concrete action to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs for persons with disabilities. Finally, I am looking forward to your deliberation and to the wide range of side events on the board of these topics. I am eager to engage with many of you over the past few days in the future and look forward to our fruitful interaction. I thank you.
I thank Ms. Hiba Hagras for her statement. I now kindly invite Ms. Sanja Tarkazi, civil society representative from the World Federation of the Deaf-Blind, to deliver a statement.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my dear colleagues and friends. I am especially honored to be present here today, and I would like to begin by sharing a personal reflection. I am a representative of one of the most vulnerable groups of persons with disabilities. As a representative of civil society and the disability movement, I stand before you with a deep sense of responsibility and determination. I am not speaking only for myself, but for over 1.3 billion persons worldwide, 16% of the global population that live with disability every day. Our collective goal is clear: to build a world that is inclusive, accessible, and participatory for everyone. The landscape of disability inclusion is evolving, presenting us with the multifaceted challenges, from barriers to accessibility and systematic discrimination, to gaps in data collection and representation. The road to true inclusion is loaded with obstacles. However, it is precisely in these challenges that we find the opportunity to facilitate meaningful change. In recent years, we have witnessed unprecedented events, including pandemics, conflicts, and many other setbacks that have disproportionately affected persons with disabilities. Despite these challenges, significant progress has been made in advancing our rights. However, at the national level, persons with disabilities continue to face numerous challenges in realizing their rights under the CRPD and the SDGs. Financial restrictions often lead to cuts in services and reduced social protection. The implementation of Agenda 2030 remains incomplete and excludes many persons of disabilities all over the world. Moreover, conflict and political turmoil perpetuate human rights violations, and the impact of climate change increases vulnerabilities, highlighting the urgent need for inclusive disaster risk reduction strategies. Yesterday, at the Civil Society Forum, representatives from diverse sectors convened to discuss these challenges and opportunities. I just want to apologize. I don't have that luxury to check my notes while holding a speech, so I need to really put the paper close to me so I can read what it says. We issued a unified call to states emphasizing the non-negotiable nature of the CRPD and the imperative of meaningful participation for persons with disabilities. An outcome document has been prepared, which will be posted on the UN DESA website, and that shows that as a community, we stand ready and committed to turn your inclusive policies into action. Allow me to make a special mention of underrepresented groups of persons with disabilities. As a woman, with deaf-blindness, I'm deeply aware that certain disability groups face additional challenges, including a lack of disability-specific services, insufficient technical understanding, resources, and very often isolation. An intersectional approach is absolutely essential to understanding and addressing the unique challenges faced by individuals who face multiple forms of discrimination. If we fail to do this, we will risk leaving groups of people behind and ignoring their realities. As I already mentioned, I am a representative of one of the most delicate and vulnerable groups of persons with disabilities, which are persons with deaf-blindness. I face multiple barriers in my everyday life. I just wanted to emphasize that we are not the only group of persons with disabilities that face these multiple challenges, and we shouldn't forget about the richness of our diversity. Looking ahead to the summit of the future, we must reimagine our approach to disability inclusion on the global stage. But let us be clear, the inclusion requires more than words. That's why, to summarize, I would like to highlight some of the key messages we wish to share today. It is imperative to ensure meaningful and genuine involvement of persons with disabilities and their representative organizations in all decision-making from the outset. We call for increased funding and improved high-quality services for persons with disabilities, as poverty and exclusion remain significant challenges. Partnerships must be created and strengthened with diverse organizations of persons with disabilities, including marginalized groups such as women and persons with deaf-blindness. Capacity building of organizations of persons with disabilities is essential, and successful practices must receive additional support and dissemination. Official statistical bodies must collect and disaggregate data by disability and recognize the importance of citizen-gathered data led by organizations of persons with disabilities. We call for the translation of the CRPD into regional and national laws to ensure the legal anchoring of our human rights. It is evident that collaboration is the key to our success. We cannot do this alone. We need the support and cooperation of our states to advance the disability inclusion. In closing, let us remember, why are we here? We are not here only to work on policies and procedures. We are here because of real people, the millions of individuals around the world whose lives are impacted by disability every day. It's about building a world where every person has the opportunity to thrive and contribute fully to the society. Together, let us rise to the challenges before us and together pave the way for a future where disability inclusion is not just a goal, but a reality for everyone, for every single person with disability, and the reality that we actually start living today. Thank you.
I thank Ms. Tarkazi for her statement. Now I kindly give the floor to Ms. Khadija Jallouli, youth representative and an entrepreneur as the founder and CEO of Hawkar Tunisia, to make a statement. Ms. Jallouli, you have the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and fellow advocates, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Khadija, and I am the CEO of Hawkar, a Tunisian startup dedicated to enhancing the lives of people with reduced mobility by providing adapted, accessible, and sustainable electric mobility solutions. As we gather here today, under the theme of Rethinking Disability Inclusion, I am deeply honored to stand before you, not just as the CEO of Hawkar, but as someone who has lived the reality of mobility challenges. Growing up, I faced physical limitations that could have confined me to the sidelines, but I refused to accept those boundaries. Instead, I turned my unique perspective into an opportunity for change. Today, I want to share with you why mobility matters, not just as a means of transportation, but as a gateway to independence, dignity, and social participation. As a person with reduced mobility, I have dedicated myself to understanding the difficult challenges faced by those with disabilities like me. Despite my physical challenges, I have refused to let the environment define my limitations. Today, I bring you a message that speaks to the very essence of our shared humanity, the importance of breaking down barriers to inclusion in social life. So let me take you on a journey that transcends the idea that movement is simply a physical act and dives into the world of freedom, dignity, and connection. Imagine a world where every limit becomes an obstacle, where public transport remains out of reach, and where social events feel like distant dreams. For millions of individuals with disabilities, this isn't imagination. It's their harsh reality. But within these challenges lies an opportunity to redefine what mobility truly means. Mobility isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's about empowering people to participate fully in society, pursue their dreams, and forge meaningful connections. It's about ensuring that no one feels left behind or excluded simply because of physical limitations. Hawkar was born out of a burning desire to create a more inclusive world. Our electric mobility solutions are not just stylish products. They provide independence, dignity, and social involvement. We are committed to ensuring that everyone has the freedom to explore and engage with the world around them. Our mission goes beyond innovation. It's about tearing down the barriers that block inclusion. It's about advocating for accessible infrastructure, supporting initiatives that promotes inclusivity, and amplifying the voices of those who have long been marginalized. As we stand at the precipice of change, let us seize this moment to reaffirm our commitment to building a more inclusive future. Let us pledge to work toward a world where everyone is valued, respected, and empowered to live life to the fullest. I believe that if you put a person in an adapted environment, that person will no longer be disabled. Conversely, if you take an able-bodied person and place them in a disabling environment, they will find themselves unable to function and, as a result, become disabled. In closing, to create a more just and equitable society, we need to support startups like HAWCAR to be change makers and advocates for inclusion. We must make inclusion not just a dream, but a reality where no one is left behind. Remember, when we break down physical barriers, we also break down walls that isolate hearts. Our actions today will shape the world of tomorrow. Finally, I want to thank everyone who participated and supported me to be here in New York with you, especially the International Center for the Promotion of Disabled People and His Excellency, Mr. Tariq Ladib, for his hospitality. Thank you.
I thank Ms. Khadija Jallouli for her statement. And with that, we have now reached the end of our opening statement session. I wish to take the opportunity to express our sincere appreciation to Her Excellency Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, His Excellency President of the General Assembly, and all the distinguished speakers for your statement at this opening meeting. I now invite the Secretariat to make an announcement concerning official documentations, accessibility arrangements, and other practical information about the conference. You have the floor.
Thank you, President. The Secretariat would like to make the following announcement. 1. Information about the Conference of States Parties, including relevant practical arrangements and other details. To support the full participation by delegates and all other participants, the Secretariat publishes and updates information online at the UN-enabled website, www.un.org/disabilities. This includes logistics and other practical arrangement details, the COSP17 program in an easy-to-understand format, an informational note for participants. Delegates are invited to consult this website for relevant and updated announcements about the conference. Number 2, official documentation. The conference has 4 official documents: CRPD/CSP/2024/1 through 4, including the provisional agenda and 3 background notes for the 3 thematic roundtable discussions. These documents have been issued in 6 UN official languages and are available on both the ODS and the United Nations Enable website. 3, accessibility service and support. The UN Secretariat and the Secretariat for the Conference of States Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities are committed to accessibility and its promotion. In collaboration with Department of General Assembly Affairs and Conference Management and other UN offices, we strive to meet the accessibility requirements of delegates and observers with disabilities to facilitate their participation in this conference. Based on received requests, accessibility arrangements and reasonable accommodations are made accordingly. For example, modifications of the seating in the conference rooms, international sign language interpretation, and closed caption subtitling are available during the session. A limited number of copies of the 4 official documents have been prepared in Braille and large print formats to meet the specific needs of delegates who notify the Secretariat in advance. Delegates who have requested a copy of the official documents in Braille or large print in advance, but have not yet received their copies, may retrieve it at the document desk located at the back of this venue. Those who require a copy of the official documents in Braille or large print, but did not notify the Secretariat in advance, please visit the UN Accessibility Center at any time during the session to make your request. The UN Accessibility Center, located on the same floor as Conference Room 4, will assist as much as possible what you require. 4, Paper Smart. Finally, the 17th session of the Conference of States Parties is a Paper Smart meeting. All delegations wish to post their full statements for the general debate are requested to send a copy of the finalized statements in Microsoft Word and accessible PDF format to estatements@un.org. estatements@un.org, no later than 3 hours before the meeting at which you will be speaking. Statements submitted and published in the UN Journal portal will also be recognized in the official report of the conference. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
I thank the Secretariat for all these clarifications and information. Distinguished delegates, the Conference of States Parties will now proceed with the agenda item 4, election of the members of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in accordance with Article 34 of the Convention. I would like to remind you that only state parties to the CRPD can participate and vote during the elections. This is an election to replace those 9 members of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities whose terms are due to expire on the 31st of December 2024. The 9 members whose terms are due to expire on that date are the following: Ms. Rosa Idalia Aldana Salguero from Guatemala, Ms. Jirel Dondov Dorj from Mongolia, Ms. Viviane Fernandez de Torrijos from Panama, Ms. Odilia Fitoussi from Israel, Ms. Samuel Njuguna Kabwe from Kenya, Mr. Abdelmajid Makni from Morocco, Mr. Robert George Martin from New Zealand, Mr. Floyd Morris from Jamaica, Ms. Saolak Thongukwai from Thailand. I wish to draw your attention to certain provisions contained in Article 34 of the Convention. Article 34, paragraph 5 provides that the members of the committee shall be elected by secret ballot from a list of persons nominated by states parties from among their nationals and meetings of the Conference of States Parties. At those meetings for which 2/3 of states parties shall constitute a quorum, the persons elected to the committee shall be those who obtain the largest number of votes and an absolute majority of the votes of the representatives of states parties present and voting. Article 34, paragraph 4 provides that the members of the committee shall be elected by states parties, consideration being given to equitable geographical distribution, representation of the different forms of civilization and of the principal legal systems, balanced gender representation, and participation of experts with disabilities. Article 4, paragraph 3 provides as follows. The members of the committee shall serve in their personal capacity and shall be of high moral standing and recognized competence and experience in the field covered by the present convention. States parties are also encouraged when nominating candidates to give due consideration to the provision of Article 4, paragraph 3, urging states parties to closely consult with and actively involve persons with disabilities, including children with disabilities, throughout their representative organizations. In matters related to the implementation of the Convention, the election will be conducted in accordance with Article 34 of the Convention and Rules 17, 18, and 19 of the Rules of Procedure of the Conference of Status Parties. In accordance with Article 34, paragraph 6 of the Convention, the Secretary General, in a note verbal dated on the 10th of November 2023, invited the status parties to the Convention to submit their nominations for membership of the committee before 11th of April 2024. The government of Mauritania informed of the withdrawal of the nomination of Mr. Abdullahi Diakite. In accordance with Article 34, paragraph 6 of the Convention, the Secretary General transmitted to the status parties a list of alphabetical order of 15 persons thus nominated before 11th of April, including their biographical details in conference document number CRPD/CSP/2024/CRP1. Through its note verbal dated 7th of June 2024, the Permanent Mission of the People's Republic of China informed of the withdrawal of nomination of Mr. Wan Hongzhang. Are there any further nomination or withdrawals? If there are no more further nomination or withdrawals, we shall proceed with the election on the basis of the following 14 candidates. Mr. Magino Corporan Lorenzo from Dominican Republic. Ms. Jirel Dandov Dorj from Mongolia. Mr. George Zineladze from Georgia. Mr. Odnel Eliazard from Haiti, Ms. Odelia Fitoussi from Israel, Ms. Mara Cristina Gabrielli from Brazil, Ms. Natalia Guala Biatiate from Uruguay, Ms. Elena Koshoska from North Macedonia, Mr. Abdelkrim Mekni from Morocco, Mr. Boniface Massa from Malawi, Mr. Floyd Morris from Jamaica, Mr. Christopher Nwanoro from Nigeria, Ms. Inmaculada Placencia Perrero from European Union, and Mr. Hiroshi Tamon from Japan. I have been informed that the following persons have volunteered to act as tellers. I will ask them to approach the podium once the ballots have been distributed. We have Ms. Lois Nyapan, Permanent Mission of Liberia, Ms. Wafiqa Al-Mujalla, Permanent Mission of Kuwait, Mr. Bartosz Kempinski, Permanent Mission of Poland, and Ms. Andrea Carlson from Permanent Mission of Sweden. The conference officers will now distribute the ballot papers. Representatives are kindly requested to place an X at the left-hand side of the name of the candidates they wish to elect. Ballot papers will be considered valid only if they contain votes for 9 candidates or less. Ballot papers with votes for more than 9 candidates will be considered invalid. Blank ballot papers will be considered abstentions. If a ballot contains any notation other than votes in favor of specific candidates whose names appear on the ballot paper, those notations will be disregarded. Please proceed to cast your vote.
Haiti requested that they withdraw the candidate.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, please, I have an announcement concerning the election process. We have had an issue with one of the candidature because the delegation of Haiti asked for the withdrawal of its candidate. And now, as we have distributed the paper ballot, we decided, after reviewing and after asking OLA, to destroy this paper ballot, and we will repeat the operation of election at 12 with new papers with different color. Now we will proceed to general debate. I thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we will proceed with the general debate. Inscription to the general debate was initially announced during the informal briefing on the preparation of the conference on the 13th of May. An announcement on the general debate was accordingly placed in the UN Journal. The speakers list was open for inscription via e-delegate portal between the 20th of May and the 3rd of June and was closed by 6 p.m. on the 3rd of June. I would like to draw your kind attention to the rule of speaking time limit, that is 3 minutes of statement. Colleagues, please remain seated. The rule anticipated in the guidance note has been communicated formally with all 5 regional groups over the past months, and it is also published on the devoted COSP17 website, which is linked to the UN Journal. In my capacity as the president of the meeting, I kindly call upon all speakers for your cooperation in strictly observing these rules, especially the 3-minute speaking time limit for speakers of all representation levels. Please also note reasonable accommodation with 1 extra minute will be granted to speakers who already notified their specific accessibility needs for delivering their statements. For this purpose, a technical mechanism is put in place for meeting. Therefore, all speakers are kindly suggested to try wrapping up your statement before the end of your allocated speaking time limit, or the speaker's microphone will be automatically cut. As announced earlier, delegations are encouraged to avail themselves of the opportunity to post a full text of their statements by emailing to estatements@un.org, copying to enable@un.org 3 hours in advance of the meeting. This means that your full texts will be published in the entirety online. Furthermore, please be assured that the official report of the session will also recognize written statements submitted and published in the UN Journal under this agenda item, general debate. Finally, in terms of the order of speakers, principle of first comes, first served, as well as applicable UN protocols will be respected. This means that all efforts will be made to accord the priority to those inscribed speakers above ministerial level. Following the long tradition and practice of our conference and considering the importance of hearing the voices and contributions from stakeholders, especially representative organizations of persons with disabilities, The Bureau agreed that after every 5 state parties spoke, we may invite 1 representative from accredited NGOs, national human rights institution, UN entity, or IGOs to take the floor, and this shall continue in between every 5 state parties. With this, I now would like to recognize His Excellency Olaf Scholz, Federal Chancellor of Germany, as the first on my list of speakers, and I kindly ask Secretariat to screen a recorded video message from His Excellency.
Inclusion is a human right, and yet people with disabilities are still among the most disadvantaged groups in the world. We are deeply committed to promoting equal access to education and the labor market, to health and social systems, or to financial services. We are working towards this goal, both at home and on a global scale. In Germany, we recently launched an initiative to ensure that accessibility for persons with disabilities is taken into account in all policy areas. We are also working to improve the access of persons with disabilities to our labor market by providing independent advice and wage subsidies. The inclusion of people with disabilities is also a cross-cutting issue of our development policy. The advancement of human rights is always a global task, one that we can only achieve together. This idea will bring us together at the Global Disability Summit that we will be hosting together with our friends from Jordan and the International Disability Alliance in Berlin next year. The summit will bring together leaders, policymakers, and civil society representatives from around the world. It will be a platform for dialogue, collaboration, and most importantly, for action. In Berlin, we want to move beyond theoretical discussions and focus on how to better implement the convention and improve the situation of persons with disabilities around the world. I call on every country and every organization to formulate ambitious and concrete commitments towards this goal. Please join us in Berlin in April 25. I look forward to seeing you there.
I thank His Excellency Olaf Scholz, Federal Chancellor of Germany, for his statement. I now kindly invite Her Excellency Mrs. Aria Ali, First Lady of Guyana, to deliver a statement. The floor is yours, Excellency.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, in a truly inclusive and sustainable world, persons with disabilities must be empowered to live a life with dignity and respect, a life where they can realize their potential. What is the reality? In developing countries, the majority of persons with disabilities of working age are unemployed, and many children with disabilities do not attend school. The adoption of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities created necessary momentum for removing institutional and attitudinal barriers and promoting the full participation of persons with disabilities in society. Guided by the Convention, Guyana enacted disabilities legislation and adopted a multifaceted approach to ensure that persons with disabilities enjoy equal treatment, focusing on education and empowerment. Guyana is taking a life course approach to support persons with disabilities. A register of persons with disabilities is informing government policies and guiding interventions. All persons living with permanent disabilities are eligible to receive monthly financial assistance throughout their lives. Assistive and mobility aids are also provided free of cost. We are providing specialized support for children through widespread training of teachers. In 2023, Guyana established the Mahaika Disability Complex, a training and empowerment center which provides vital skills training. This is complemented by business grants and interest-free loans. As First Lady of Guyana, I am leading an initiative to establish a business center to advance financial independence and economic empowerment of persons with disabilities who will offer a range of products and services to Guyana's growing consumer market. In the digital age, where technology holds unprecedented power to bridge gaps and foster inclusion, Guyana is placing emphasis on enhancing digital connectivity and using technology to provide learning opportunities for persons with disabilities. Developing countries with limited human and financial resources face major challenges in providing necessary support for persons with disabilities. Limited institutional, technological, and financial capacities remain barriers in small economies with competing demands. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Guyana calls for greater international financing for disability-inclusive development in developing countries. I thank you.
I thank Her Excellency Mrs. Ariya Ali, First Lady of Guyana, for her statement. I now have the honor to kindly invite His Royal Highness Prince Mirad Rad Zaid Al Hussein, President of the Higher Council of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities of Jordan, to make a statement. Your Highness, you have the floor.
Mr. President, dear friends, the focus of my statement today will be about the Global Disability Summit next year in Berlin that Germany, Jordan, and IDA will be presiding over. I will not discuss the actual issues, but rather just touch upon some overarching matters and viewpoints that we believe are important. We must remember that the GDS 2025 will not be just a regular conference. It will be a summit about disability rights attended by world leaders for the first time ever. And in that sense, it will be a very special event. It must not be an opportunity that is dashed. It has to be a remarkable success. Hopefully, it will be a watershed moment, an inflection point. So the pressure is on for us to get all the right messages across to the world leaders as clearly and as succinctly as possible, leaving no room for doubt and speculation, that disability rights must be respected everywhere, even in regions facing severe hardship and devastation such as Gaza, where tens of thousands of injured and maimed civilians have been left to their own devices. The world leaders who will attend the GDS next year must go home feeling energized and ready to institute needed change. So what new policies or approaches could we humbly suggest that may guarantee the summit's success? Keeping in mind that in most developing countries and in several developed countries, persons with disabilities are more often than not at the bottom of the ladder. They feel marginalized, helpless, forgotten, dismissed, and for all intents and purposes are invisible. Two policies that may help pave the way forward and are food for thought are: countries must first and foremost endeavor to take ownership of the problem to the greatest extent possible. By this I mean that that countries must adopt a serious approach vis-à-vis disability rights and inclusion, to implement the articles of the CRPD in a manner that entails providing the necessary leadership, legislating laws, providing the human resources, formulating a national strategy and operational plans, allocating funds from the national budget, establishing a national identity to draft disability policies, provide oversight and monitor progress, including persons with disabilities and their organizations in all decision-making, etc., etc., etc. The ABCs of ownership are well known, and it's not rocket science. All that is needed is good leadership and a serious approach. Secondly, on the other side of the equation, the donor community, donor countries, organizations must make all their grants and support inclusive, disability sensitive. Just like gender is always a condition and a stipulation, disability should also be. I thank you all for listening and hope that you will take part in the summit next year, if not physically, by all means virtually. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaykum assalam. I thank His Highness for his statement. I now ask Secretariat to screen the video from His Excellency Dominique Hassler, Foreign Minister of Liechtenstein.
Chairperson, Excellencies, it is a particular honor for me to speak at Liechtenstein's first Conference of State Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The ratification of the Convention late last year marked an important milestone in our trajectory towards the full and equal participation of persons with disabilities in all aspects of society. Almost 20 years ago, Liechtenstein took the first significant step in this direction by adopting the Act on Equal Opportunities of Persons with Disabilities. At the same time, the UN has played a pivotal role in the further advancement of a human rights-based approach to disability at the global level. With the ratification of this landmark convention, we reaffirm our commitment to promoting and upholding the dignity and rights of persons with disabilities and are proud to stand with the international community in this critical endeavor. Chairperson, with the entry into force of the Convention in Liechtenstein, we ensured that the crucial standards set out in the CRPD were incorporated in our legal framework. We are proud to have been able to set up our national independent monitoring mechanism during this process, as it assumed its new task upon entry into force of the Convention. Rest assured that we will continue to strive for the elimination of all obstacles and barriers to the inclusion of persons with disabilities. As a concrete example, we are currently in the process of further amending our legal framework regarding guardianship. I am confident that once we submit our initial report next year, we will report on excellent legal foundations and effective measures. Chairperson, our efforts addressing the inclusion of persons with disabilities are not only domestically oriented. We also want to actively support these efforts abroad. In line with one of the themes of the year's conference, Liechtenstein contributes to the ICRC Special Appeal on Disability and Mine Action, which specifically aims to support the rehabilitation of persons with physical disabilities, including those victims of violence or injured by mines and explosive remnants of war. Pursuant to the CRPD and in the very spirit of leaving no one behind, we indeed need to ensure that international cooperation is and remains inclusive of and accessible to persons with disabilities. Thank you.
I thank Her Excellency for her statement. I now kindly ask Secretariat to screen a video message from His Excellency Mr. Kamal Madouri, Minister of Social Affairs of Tunisia, to make a statement.
السيد رئيس المؤتمر، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، حضرات السيدات والسادة، تشكل الدورة 17 لمؤتمر الدول الأطراف في اتفاقية حقوق الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة مناسبة متجددة للوقوف على ما تم إنجازه تنفيذا لإحكام هذه الاتفاقية الدولية، وفرصة لإعادة التفكير في مفاهيم وسياسات وآليات وبرامج جديدة للإدماج ومقاومة مخاطر الإقصاء والتهميش في ظل الوضع العالمي الراهن وفي أفق قمة المستقبل. السيد الرئيس، السيدات والسادة، لقد نص الفصل 54 من دستور الجمهورية التونسية أن الدولة تحمي الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة من كل تمييز وتتخذ كل التدابير الرامية إلى مقاومة مختلف أشكال الإقصاء، وفي سياق دعم الحقوق المدنية والسياسية وتعزيز فرص مشاركة الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة ضمن الحياة العامة، تم تمكينهم من تمثيلية قارة ضمن المجالس المحلية المكونة للمجلس الوطني للجهات والأقاليم الوارد بالدستور، ومواكبة للتحولات العالمية وانسجاما مع استحقاقات قمة المستقبل. تدعو تونس المجتمع الدولي إلى مزيد الالتزام بالواجبات المحمولة عليه، وفي هذا السياق وعلى مزيد الإعمال الفعلي لحقوق هذه الفئة. السيد الرئيس، حضرات السيدات والسادة، إن تونس تدعو من خلال هذا المنبر إلى الموائمة بين السياسات العمومية واتفاقية الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة عبر الخطط والبرامج والآليات ذات الأبعاد الوقائية والرعائية والإدماجية، واستغلال مزايا الثورة الرقمية وتشريك القطاع الخاص في تحمل مسؤوليته المجتمعية التضامنية للنهوض بأوضاع الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة. السيد الرئيس، حضرات السيدات والسادة، إن الوضع العالمي الراهن ينطوي على تحديات اجتماعية واقتصادية وجيوسياسية ومناخية تؤثر على واقع ورفاهية الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة، ويتحتم على المجموعة الدولية إعادة التفكير في صيغ إدماجهم وفق مقاربة جديدة تقوم على تحديث المفاهيم بما يتلائم مع جميع أشكال ومجالات التهديد، وتكييف مجموعة من الأدوات والآليات لإدارة الكوارث والأزمات من خلال وضع خطط تدخل تأخذ بعين الاعتبار خصوصية الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة. وعليه تدعو تونس المجتمع الدولي إلى توفير الحماية والرعاية اللازمتين للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة في قطاع غزة إزاء القصف والحصار الذي تقوم به قوات الاحتلال وصعوبة الفرار من الهجمات، إضافة إلى نقص في الدواء والماء والكهرباء وخدمات الصرف الصحي وغيرها. السيد الرئيس، حضرات السيدات والسادة، في الختام تدعو تونس المجموعة الدولية إلى العمل بثبات على إعمال كل التوصيات التي ستنبثق عن هذا المؤتمر، ولا يسعني إلا أن أجدد لكم شكري على إتاحة الفرصة، آملين في حياة أفضل للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Kamal Madouri for his statement. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, per decided by the Bureau, I now recognize and invite the representative of the International Disability Alliance to make a statement.
Excellencies, I address you on behalf of the International Disability Alliance. During the next 3 days, as we reflect on the progress made and the challenges that lie ahead, we must acknowledge that the journey towards full and effective inclusion of persons with disabilities is far from complete. Yes, we acknowledge that significant strides have been made, yet we still encounter systematic barriers that hinder our participation in society on an equal basis with others. My organization, and indeed the disability movement itself, is deeply worried at the state of the world in 2024. International crises continue to demonstrate how easily our human rights can be cast aside. We see this crisis after crisis during conflict, natural disaster, climate emergencies, and other humanitarian crises all around the world. I do not need to stress how vital it is that the rights of persons with disability are incorporated into all humanitarian action. But the reality in conflict zones across the world today is a tragic reminder that we must again plead with the international community to fulfill the Article 11 obligation. The implementation of Article 11 remains tragically weak, in particular in ongoing conflict setting. 2024 is also the 5th year anniversary of the adoption of the UN Resolution 2475. Can we say that they have access to justice? Despite the enormous progress, can we really say that rights of persons with disability are protected in conflict situations? Do they have basic services and unimpeded humanitarian assistance? If nothing else at this cost, the people with disability in Ukraine and Gaza deserve an honest answer to this question. We must do better. IDA has high expectation of the CRPD draft general comment on Article 11, and the chasm between CRPD standard and implementation must close. Climate change is another pressing issue that demands our immediate attention. by failing to prepare and including persons with disability in climate action plans, then we are preparing to fail, particularly persons with disability in small island developing state. Colleagues, we have less than 6 years left to meet the 2030 agenda. We are concerned that the Summit of the Future and Draft Pact for the Future are being developed in a way that exclude persons with disabilities. The pact must reaffirm that persons with disability are not just beneficiaries, they are essential contributors to sustainable development. And finally, we must ensure participation of persons with disability through a disability-specific impact coalition. Systematic exclusion is something we hope to leave behind forever. Let's build an inclusive future where equal participation leads to equal progress for all. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of IDA for his statement. I now give the floor to the Office of the Public Defender, Ombudsman of Georgia. You have the floor.
Honorable Chair, distinguished members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to speak on behalf of A-Status National Human Rights Institution of Georgia, the public defender, which has been responsible for monitoring the implementation of the UN CRPD since 2014. In my brief intervention, I would like to draw your attention to significant shortcomings in the implementation process of the convention in Georgia, with special focus on the main topics of today's event. While the public defender welcomes important steps taken by the government following the ratification of the UN CRPD, fundamental practical changes that would truly improve the lives of persons with disabilities are still pending, and more challenges than achievements persist. Firstly, despite the establishment of the certain procedural frameworks ensuring genuine involvement of the persons with disabilities in decision-making process remains inadequate. The introduction of a biopsychosocial model for evaluating disability status and ensuring accessibility for all are two major prerequisites for the proper implementation of the convention that the state must address more effectively. Given the prevalent accessibility challenges in the introduction of artificial intelligence represents both an urgent need and significant challenge. The only technology currently provided by the state for persons with disabilities are smartphones and hearing aids. The state should take measures to timely ratify Council of Europe Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence and use all possible international mechanisms and initiatives to foster international cooperation and ensure that technology and innovations are accessible. This issue became a significant problem during COVID-19 pandemic when disproportionate spread, lack or absence of technologies and insufficient knowledge of how to use them became major barrier for persons with disabilities, and the state response to the crisis relieved that persons with disabilities were disproportionately affected both during and in the aftermath of the health emergency. Inequalities remains in the process of employment of persons with disabilities as well. The lack of formal education and continuous professional trainings for persons with disabilities prevents from being employed. And finally, the state has to abolish all practices that contradict the full realization of the rights of persons with disabilities. In this regard, the public defender has expressed concerns about adoption of the law of Georgia on transparency of foreign influence multiple times and has addressed Parliament of Georgia not to approve the draft law due to its incompatibility with the Constitution and international standards. The public defender will continue monitoring and, more importantly, advocating for the protection of the rights of persons with disabilities and for better implementation of the convention within the institution's mandate. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Office of Public Defender Ombudsman of Georgia for her statement. Now I give the floor for the first UN entity on my list, the International Labour Organization, and after that we will proceed to the election process. So ILO, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Dear delegates, dear colleagues, dear disability representatives, the International Labour Organization is the UN specialized agency in the world of work. Unlike other entities, it's governed not only by its 187 member states, but also by the most representative workers and employers organizations in each country. This tripartite constitution allows us to make positive and sustainable change in the world of work, including for persons with disabilities. We promote disability-inclusive social protection systems and compatibility of salaries with disability benefits to cover the extra costs of living with a disability. To measure progress made by countries in the implementation of the SDGs, in particular SDG 8 with regard to the labor market conditions of persons with disabilities. We promote the use of the Washington Group questions in labor force surveys. We have also created a more detailed and specific module to be included in labor force surveys. This has led to much better disability disaggregated data with regard to persons with disabilities in the world of work. The UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, in its Article 27 on work and employment, spells out the key areas to be realized with regard to persons with disabilities. Yet, despite almost 2 decades after its adoption, much remains to be done. In fact, the ILO data shows that 7 in 10 persons with disabilities are still outside the labor market, compared to 4 in 10 persons without disabilities. So, we need both disability-specific labor market interventions, but we also need to mainstream the rights of persons with disabilities in key areas like youth employment, accessible and inclusive vocational trainings, but also to take advantage of opportunities in the green and digital economy. We also see the care services and care support systems as a great opportunity, not only to provide for decent work opportunities for persons with and without disabilities, but also for those persons with disabilities who need support services to enter and stay in the labor market. It is a powerful tool. Finally, to address the demand side of the labor market, we coordinate, since over a decade, the Global Business Disability Network, which is a network of 40 multinational companies which are committed to gain capacity and to be committed towards the inclusion of persons with disabilities and also their retention. It's also composed of 40 national business disability networks, mostly in the Global South. So together we can work towards a more inclusive culture for all. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of International Labor Organization, and now we will resume the election process. If there are no further nominations or withdrawals, we shall proceed with the election on the basis of the following 13 candidates. So we have Mr. Magino Corporan Lorenzo from Dominican Republic, Ms. Gerel Dondov Dorj from Mongolia, Mr. George Deniladze from Georgia. The candidate of Haiti was withdrawn. Ms. Odelia Fitoussi from Israel, Ms. Mara Cristina Gabrielli from Brazil, Ms. Natalia Guala Bithyati from Uruguay, Ms. Elena Kososka from North Macedonia, Mr. Abdelmajid Makni from Morocco, Mr. Boniface Massa from Malawi, Mr. Floyd Morris from Jamaica, Mr. Christopher Nwanoro from Nigeria, Miss Inmaculada Placencia Porrero from European Union, and Mr. Hiroshi Tamon from Japan. I have been informed that the following persons have been volunteered. As I have mentioned before, the tellers will be Miss Lois Nyapan from Liberia, Miss Wafiqa Al-Mujalla from Kuwait, Mr. Bartosz Kempinski from Poland, and Miss Andrea Carlson from Sweden. The conference officers will now distribute the ballot papers, and please, dear colleagues, you use only the papers in purple. The white papers will not be counted. Representatives are kindly requested to place an X at the left-hand side of the name of the candidates they wish to be elected. Ballot papers will be considered valid only if they contain votes for 9 candidates from the 13. Ballot papers with votes for more than 9 candidates will be considered invalid. Blank ballot papers will be considered abstentions. If a ballot contains any notation other than votes in favor of specific candidates whose names appear on the ballot paper, those notations will be disregarded. Please proceed to cast your vote. Yes, I said it. Okay, colleagues, may I ask the tellers to approach the podium? Okay. The conference officers will now show the room that the ballot boxes are empty. Please, officers, show the boxes. So please, election officers, you show the boxes to the room. And if all delegates are ready, the conference officers, accompanied by the tellers, will now collect the ballot papers. Okay, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, have all the representatives handed in their ballot papers? Okay. Voting is now closed. No more ballot papers will be accepted. Distinguished delegates, the tellers and members of the Secretariat will now withdraw to count the votes and to make the best use of our time and conference services for the meeting. While the ballots are counted, we shall now resume the general debate, and the results of the elections will be delivered at 3 o'clock. Now I kindly invite His Excellency Mr. Bill Shorten, Minister of the National Disability Insurance Scheme and Minister for Government Services of Australia, to deliver a statement on behalf of the group of MICTA and then a national capacity of Australia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I have the honour to deliver this statement on behalf of the MICTA countries, Mexico, Indonesia, Republic of Korea, Turkey and Australia. MICTA countries are strong supporters of the rules-based multilateral system, effective global governance, upholding international law and the protection and promotion of human rights. We share a vision of realising a strong, inclusive and resilient world. Disability equity and rights are central to this collective ethos and a priority for our partnership. Despite the near universal ratification of the CRPD and the promise of the 2030 Agenda to leave no one behind, significant action is still required to ensure and promote the full realisation of universal human rights and fundamental freedoms for all persons with disabilities. We're deeply concerned that progress remains persistently slow. MICTA calls on all state parties to implement the 2030 Agenda and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals with the CRPD as a guiding framework. Chair, this year's overarching theme of the conference prompts us to rethink disability inclusion today and into the future. MICTA emphasises that disability equity and rights are an integral part of sustainable development to improve equity and outcomes for all persons with disabilities. We also note that conflict has severe and long-lasting effects on persons with disabilities, yet their voice is frequently missing from peace-building and reconstruction efforts. Technology and innovation present both risks and opportunities to improve accessibility and the lives of persons with disabilities globally. The Summit of the Future is an opportunity to galvanise action. We encourage state parties to give due recognition to disability in the Pact for the Future, the outcome document of the Summit, with it embodying the principles set out in the CRPD. We would like to register our concern that the current draft of the Pact could better reflect the role and representation of peoples with disability, who make up 16% of the world's population. Chair, the Summit of the Future must recall that persons with disabilities must be guaranteed the full enjoyment of their rights and freedoms without discrimination of any kind. I thank you.
Now, Your Excellency, you will deliver a statement on your national capacity. You have the floor.
Australia's strength comes from the diversity inherent in our society, which includes more than 60,000 years of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture. The Australian government strives for a community where citizens with disability participate in Australian life with equal rights. Australian disability rights advocates were instrumental in negotiations on the United Nations Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Civil society partners joining me here today remain a driving force in achieving equity and inclusion. The journey of disability in Australia has been the story of struggle and progress, and in 2013 the National Disability Insurance Scheme commenced. It is a social model of disability, not a medical model, separate and in addition to our disability pension. The scheme provides individualised funding packages to participants based on their reasonable and necessary needs, allowing choice and control over the types of supports and services they engage. The NDIS is a massive national undertaking where we invest greater than 1% of our national GDP in Australians with severe and profound disability. It embeds our nation's commitment to the principles enshrined in the CRPD and displays our national commitment to actions, not just words. In consultation with the disability community, we are now advancing the biggest sets of reform to our NDIS since it began. We're putting Australians with lived experience at the centre of the scheme, consulting with them to reform the design and delivery of programs. We reject the deficit model of disability. We seek to empower what Australians with disability can do, not what they can't do. Australia's forthcoming International Disability Equity and Rights Strategy will identify priorities to improve the lives of persons with disabilities globally through foreign policy, development cooperation and humanitarian action. Conflicts and crises worldwide, including in Gaza and Ukraine, Myanmar and Sudan, call for greater international action. The upcoming Summit of the Future is an opportunity for the international community to galvanise action to meet our CRPD commitments and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development promise to leave no one behind. We call on Member States to ensure the Summit of the Future process and outcomes give due recognition to disability. We encourage the UN and all humanitarian partners to fully implement the Interagency Standing Committee guidelines on inclusion of persons with disabilities in humanitarian action. Persons with disability must participate in our collective future on an equal basis, living lives of independence and dignity. We recognise disability is universal. We recognise it as all of us, any one of us, or anyone we love. Disability is the expression of our humanity, and inclusion is a true measure of a nation's commitment to the human rights of all its citizens. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency Bill Shorten for his statements. And now I have the honor to give the floor to Her Excellency Dr. Amthal Al-Huwaila, Minister of Social Affairs, Family and Childhood Affairs and Minister of State for Youth Affairs from Kuwait. You have the floor, Doctor.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سيدي الرئيس، أعبر عن خالص تقدير دولة الكويت لعقد هذا اللقاء الهام الموجه لمناقشة قضية إنسانية عالمية واجبة الاستحقاق في ظل التوجهات الأممية الرامية لتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة التي تنادي بالشمولية وبعدم ترك أي شخص خلف الركب، ألا وهو العمل على النهوض بحق الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة في العمل اللائق وسبل العيش المستدام. وقد تمت المصادقة والانضمام إلى الاتفاقية الدولية لحقوق الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة بتاريخ 14 فبراير 2013. وإذ تسعى دولة الكويت ممثلة بالهيئة العامة لشؤون الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة بتبني أهداف التنمية المستدامة ضمن إطار رؤية كويت جديدة. وفي هذا الإطار تركز الهيئة على تفعيل خطتها الاستراتيجية 2020-2025 بالتعاون مع العديد من الجهات الحكومية والمجتمع المدني على إعداد وتنظيم وتنفيذ السياسة الوطنية للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة. وقد بلغت نسبة المستفيدين من خدمات الهيئة وحتى الربع الأول من عام 2024 66,366 مستفيد ضمن فئات الإعاقات المختلفة الجسدية والبصرية والذهنية والحركية والتعليمية والتطورية والسمعية والنفسية، مع مراعاة الاحتياجات الخاصة للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة واتخاذ الترتيبات التيسيرية اللازمة، حيث تقدم دولة الكويت الخدمات المنتظمة المتكاملة والمستمرة للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة على قدم المساواة مع الآخرين. ومن المشاريع التي أثبتت فاعليتها وبدأت الكويت تقطف ثمارها في مجال دمج الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة في سوق العمل، وهي مبادرة شركاء لتوظيفهم، والتي أطلقت الهيئة العامة لشؤون ذوي الإعاقة في عام 2018 وبشراكة استراتيجية مع جمعية البناء البشري للتنمية الاجتماعية، والتي انتهت من تدريب 258 من شباب وشابات ذوي الإعاقة خلال 5 دفعات تدريبية متعاقبة، نتج عنها توظيف 112 منهم في القطاعين الحكومي والخاص بنسبة توظيف بلغت نحو 71% من المتدربين، والذي يعتبر إنجازاً يقربنا من تحقيق هدف الإدماج في سوق العمل وتحقيق الاستقلالية المالية والذاتية للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة. إن مجمل التشريعات والبرامج والخدمات التي تستهدف الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة في مختلف مراحل الحياة في دولة الكويت
I thank Her Excellency Dr. Amthel for her statement, and now I ask Secretariat to screen a pre-recorded video of Her Excellency Niveen Al-Kabbaz, Minister of Social Solidarity in Egypt.
Dear partners, distinguished attendees, I have the pleasure to participate virtually in the Conference of States Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Persons with disabilities in Egypt have made significant achievements across various sectors, contributing to the nation's cultural, social, and economic fabric. For the first time, disability law and bylaws were issued in 2018-2019. It's a comprehensive law that guarantees the rights of persons with disabilities, including access to healthcare, to education, employment, and social services. It also mandates the inclusion of disability issues in the national development plans. National Council for Disability Affairs was established to promote and protect the rights of people with disabilities, ensuring their full inclusion in all aspects of life. 2% of the parliament members are people with disabilities, participating politically, advocating for disability rights and inclusive policies. At the level of social protection, nearly 2% of severe and medium disabilities are benefiting of monthly cash transfer and are eventually beneficiaries of subsidized food and bread. People with disabilities have the right to benefit from specialized health services and universal health coverage. Rehabilitation centers increased by 100% to avail rehabilitation services for all types of disabilities with all levels in rural and remote areas especially. Inclusive educations were considered to integrate students with disabilities into mainstream schools. The government of Egypt enforces a 5% employment quota for persons with disabilities in both public and private sectors. A national network for persons with disabilities employment services was launched to support them, to get them to know about available vacancies and to apply for their employment opportunities. 3% of SMEs are being oriented to people with disabilities to get them more empowered in entrepreneurship skills. Accessibility and of the infrastructure, of technologies, of assistive devices were considered. Efforts are being made to improve accessibility in metro stations, train stations, universities, and all new buildings. At the level of arts and culture and sports, they were also considered. A theater was established specially for people with disabilities, players with disabilities, where they promote their cause and help assert the rights as equal persons with different abilities. We also have orchestra constituted of visually impaired players and singers. Media campaigns are continuous. One of the main challenges in Egypt is stigmatizing people with disabilities, and this is not at all acceptable at the political and social level. And that's why efforts are being more included to promote the rights, get them fully integrated and living independently.
I thank Her Excellency Niveen Al-Kabbaz for her statement, and now I ask Secretariat to screen a pre-recorded video of Her Excellency Ms. Honorable Doreen Kangwa Swamba, Minister for Community Development and Social Services in Zambia.
Chairperson, thank you for giving Zambia the opportunity to speak at this conference under the theme Rethinking Disability Inclusion in the Current International Juncture and Ahead of the Summit of the Future. The theme provides us an opportunity to re-evaluate our successes and address the remaining gaps in achieving disability inclusion. Like many developing countries, Zambia faces challenges in its efforts to achieve disability inclusion due to various global factors. To this end, Zambia is strategically building the capacity of persons with disabilities in business and entrepreneurship skills to foster sustainable livelihoods. This includes facilitating their access to loans, grants, and enhancing the utilization of such resources. Additionally, Zambia has improved disability inclusion by training organizations for persons with disabilities across the country in national planning, budgeting, monitoring, and evaluation. This training aims to ensure active and full participation in national development processes and to strengthen advocacy for disability inclusion across government sectors. Chairperson, recognizing that persons with disabilities are the most affected in terms of emergencies and disasters, government has enhanced their inclusion in social support services through a national enumeration and rapid response assessment conducted following the declaration of a national disaster. Additionally, disability inclusion has been reinforced through the implementation of shock-responsive social protection initiatives benefiting persons with disabilities. The State Party has also transformed the appointment of focal point persons in government ministries and institutions into focal point teams. This transformation aims to enhance collaboration and innovation for better outcomes in disability mainstreaming within institutions. Chairperson, while the State Party has made significant efforts to enhance disability inclusion in the development agenda, there are still many gaps in realizing full disability inclusion. These gaps include knowledge deficiencies in technology, policies, and laws, high costs related to ICTs, and stigmatization, among others. We must intensify our actions and implement strategies to accelerate the actualization of disability inclusion and foster sustainable interventions for the future. I thank you.
I thank Her Excellency Ms. Mwamba for her statement, and now I give the floor to the representative of International Disability and Development Consortium.
Chair, distinguished guests and colleagues, I'm speaking on behalf of the International Disability and Development Consortium, a network of 36 members from civil society, including NGOs, organizations of persons with disabilities, networks and individuals. IDDC promotes inclusive international development and humanitarian action with a focus on the full and effective enjoyment of human rights for all persons with disabilities. The recognition of the role of CSOs and OPDs is at the foundation of democratic processes. Now more than ever, this role is critical as we face strong headwinds in relation to respecting, promoting and protecting human rights and a closing civil society space. The risk to disability rights within this context is significant, and the specific experience of persons with disabilities must be considered. Persons with disabilities are hugely diverse, and even within discussions on disabilities, some are underrepresented, such as persons with psychosocial, intellectual disabilities, persons affected by leprosy, persons with deaf blindness, and persons with disabilities living in institutions, hospitals, and other forms of segregated settings. The rights of persons with disabilities and the responsibilities of state parties to fulfil them are clearly articulated in the CRPD. The implementation of disability inclusive commitments under global development frameworks, such as the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Sendai Framework, are also critical to addressing the inequity experienced by persons with disabilities. OPDs have a critical role to play in the implementation of these existing commitments is critical. We must also ensure the systemic inclusion of persons with disabilities and their representative organisations in all future agreements. At this conference of state parties, we call on state parties to increase efforts to deliver the convention by laying the foundation for inclusion for the full enjoyment of human rights, by respecting their obligations under the international humanitarian law and human rights law, including Article 11 of the CRPD, as well as the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2475. Nothing justifies targeting civilians in denial of their very basic human rights and needs. Implementing the CRPD guidelines on deinstitutionalization, including in emergency situations, and ensuring that monitoring and measuring mechanisms are put in place, for example, the implementation of the OECD DAC marker. Lastly, we call on Member States to ensure in the Summit of the Future that persons with disabilities are at the centre, including supporting the formation of a Disability Inclusive Impact Coalition. IDDC, our members and partners, are ready to work with Member States in this regard. Thank you for your time.
I thank the distinguished representative of International Disability and Development Consortium, and now I give the floor to the representative of Human Rights Ombudsman of the Republic of Slovenia. You have the floor. If the Human Rights Ombudsman of the Republic of Slovenia is not present, I'll move to the representative of the United Nations Office for Project Services. You have the floor.
Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Pascal Bielefeld, and I'm the CEO of AT-Scale, the Global Partnership for Assistive Technology, hosted by UNOPS. Assistive technology is addressed in multiple articles in the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, advocating the promotion of research, development, production, availability, and appropriate use of assistive technology. But the world so far has failed to meet the global need for assistive technology, particularly in lower-income countries where only 10% of people have the assistive technology that they need. This gap is caused by multiple and persisting barriers that have resulted in underinvestment in the sector, including lack of financing to purchase assistive products and numerous inefficiencies in the marketplace. Another bottleneck is a lack of coordination amongst ministries and departments, which translates into a lack of a coordinated national response, leading to a fragmented and under-resourced sector. AT-Scale, the Global Partnership for Assistive Technology, is today the only partnership for assistive technology that takes a cross-sectoral, coordinated, country-level approach towards sustainable systems change and market shaping in low and middle-income countries, ensuring that assistive technology can be available, accessible, and affordable for everyone, everywhere. In recent years, we've begun to make significant investments in countries where the need is great. We now have a footprint in 28 countries where we seek to drive sustainable system change, strengthening enabling ecosystems to increase national capacity to procure and provide assistive technology. We're also advancing multiple market-shaping initiatives across relevant domains such as mobility, vision, and hearing. And just last week, we launched the first assistive products market report, which provides greater visibility and transparency into the most dynamic AT markets. Finally, it's crucial that we continue to raise awareness of this critical issue. We're building new momentum, and last week celebrated the first World Day for Assistive Technology on June 4th, which has had a big impact, and we expect to do this next year as well. There is also a resolution that has been tabled at the UN General Assembly on assistive technology, which we hope will be adopted this year. We're already working with many member states, and we thank you for your support. However, as we heard earlier today from the Deputy Secretary General, to address the huge inequity, we need to do much more to increase the political will of member states to stimulate supply and ignite demand in countries where the need is great. I call on all of you to do more to support equitable access to assistive technology. The world needs this. Millions of people need this. Thank you.
I thank the representative of United Nations Office for Project Services, and now I give the floor to Her Excellency Julia Farrugia, Minister of Inclusion and the Voluntary Sector in Malta.
President, Malta aligns itself with the statement of the European Union and the statement of UN LGBTI core group. While promoting the rights of disabled people, the government of Malta works to assert the full participation and inclusion of all disabled people. We believe in decent work and livelihood. Malta launched the Way to Work program to facilitate the entry into employment for persons with disabilities. It aims to provide the necessary training towards developing soft skills and independent living strategies to enhance employment opportunities. This is complemented by training for employers and efforts to better bridge between education and employment. These are some of the challenges that persons with intellectual disabilities in particular are facing. Independent living is a priority for Malta. A study was carried out by the Commission for the Rights of Persons with Disability, aimed to provide the basis for a national deinstitutionalization strategy. Malta strongly believes that persons with disabilities should embrace independent living, and we will remain committed to strive to fulfill this goal with a smooth transition. A public consultation document on the national reform of personal assistance and personal budgets, developed together with local stakeholders and ANIL, the European Network on Independent Living, was launched last October. Practical measures, including strong legislation, are now being developed, reflecting feedback which we received. Furthermore, changes to Malta's disability assessment reform system, in line with a government pledge, saw the Social Security Act recently amended to set up interprofessional panels that assess claims in a holistic and functional manner. Finally, Malta became the 10th EU country to comprehensively criminalize forced sterilization. By doing so, Malta answered various calls from activists and also civil society to ensure that disabled people hold the ultimate right to consent or not to consent to such procedures at all times, and saving exceptional scenarios under all circumstances. This complements legislation recently introduced in Parliament to repeal outdated laws discriminating against persons affected by leprosy, and a scheme was introduced to compensate survivors.
I thank Her Excellency Julia Farrugia for her statement, and now I give the floor to His Excellency Konstantinos Stefanidis, President of the Hellenic National Accessibility Authority from Greece.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Greece aligns itself with the statements by the European Union and the Group of Friends of Persons with Disabilities, and would like to add the following. For Greece, the protection of the rights of persons with disabilities and their social inclusion is of utmost importance. In 2020, Greece adopted its first national action plan for the rights of persons with disabilities for the years 2021 through to 2023. During this period, significant capacity building, technical expertise, and broader public awareness have been achieved, including the identification of the beneficiaries of the disability card through the digital registry of persons with disabilities, the establishment of a pilot program for early intervention, the appointment of over 6,000 teachers and educational staff specialized in disability issues, the development of grant-supported business programs for the employment of over 3,000 unemployed people from vulnerable groups, and the pilot implementation of the Personal Assistance Service. Last month, the Greek government introduced its new national strategy for the rights of persons with disabilities, 2024 through to 2030, the cornerstone of the government's efforts to create a more inclusive, fair, and equitable society for all. It is worth noting that this was the first fully accessible public consultation process so far in Greece, thus ensuring the highest level of participation from all citizens. The primary goal of this national strategy is to enhance the visibility and inclusion of persons with disabilities. To achieve this, the notion of double convergence is deployed as a mechanism to ensure that accessibility and, in general, the quality of life of persons with disabilities will converge with that of, on the one hand, the general population within Greece, and on the other hand, of people with disabilities in the European Union, on average. The end goal of this national strategy is to create a society with which no measurable difference exists between persons with disabilities and the general population. Dear colleagues, as Vice Chair of COSP17, Greece would like to reiterate its commitment to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and its additional protocol. In the run-up to the Summit of the Future, it is our responsibility to leave no one behind. Thank you for your attention.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Stefanidis for his statement, and now I go back to the representative of Human Rights Ombudsman of the Republic of Slovenia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, and excellencies. It is an honor to address you today. I'm grateful for the opportunity which I undertake not only on behalf of the Human Rights Ombudsman of the Republic of Slovenia, but also on behalf of 38 national human rights institutions united within the European Network of National Human Rights Institutions, CRPD working group. As we will also discuss international cooperation to promote technological innovation these days, let me share some thoughts about the transformative potential of artificial intelligence in changing the lives of persons with disabilities. I believe that an inclusive future where they can fully enjoy their rights as enshrined in the Convention on the Rights of People with Disability is within our reach. However, achieving this goal requires a strong political will, a determination to invest in promoting accessibility and supporting independent living in the community. AI represents innovative solutions to numerous challenges. Speech-to-text and vision-enhancing tools dismantle barriers, while AI-driven features like voice recognition and gesture control render digital platforms more user-friendly. AI-powered navigation aids assist those with visual and mobility impairments in navigation public spaces. Adaptive learning platforms personalize educational materials for students with learning disabilities. In the workplace, AI tools accommodate diverse abilities, promoting equal job opportunities. Moreover, AI-enabled healthcare systems improve outcomes with precise diagnosis and personalized treatments, etc. But AI also poses risks. AI-driven systems, if biased, can unjust restrict eligibility for benefits such as unemployment assistance. In job recruitment, AI tools can perpetuate existing biases if trained on flawed data sets. Faulty AI risk assessment based on disability types can also lead to unjust increase in health insurance premiums. For all of these reasons, active consultation with persons with disabilities and their representative organizations is crucial, not only in policy making, but also in further development of AI systems where respect for ethical principles should be on a pedestal. Ladies and gentlemen, ensuring that technology advances benefit persons with disabilities and remain accessible to all is crucial. Here, international cooperation is indispensable. As an ombudsman, I thus advocate that the robust national human rights.
Thank the distinguished representative of Human Rights Ombudsman of Slovenia for his statement. And now we will listen to the last speaker for this session, the representative of Belgium, who will be delivering a pre-recorded video, Her Excellency Karine Lalieu.
Monsieur le Président, la Convention relative aux droits des personnes handicapées nous engage chaque jour à construire une société inclusive pour les personnes en situation de handicap, et ce, à tous les niveaux de pouvoir. La pleine intégration de la dimension du handicap dans la mise en œuvre des objectifs du développement durable est une exigence si nous voulons être à la hauteur du slogan « Ne laisser personne de côté ». Après l'inscription dans la Constitution du droit à l'inclusion en 2021, je suis heureuse de vous annoncer que le mois dernier, l'approche structurée de l'intégration de la dimension du handicap dans tous les domaines de la politique fédérale que nous avons construite ces dernières années a reçu une base légale et est donc assurée pour l'avenir. La nouvelle loi prévoit une implication active de la société civile, des personnes en situation de handicap et du mécanisme indépendant dans l'élaboration, la mise en œuvre et le suivi des futurs plans d'action handicap. L'accès à l'emploi et l'insertion professionnelle pour les personnes en situation de handicap est crucial pour leur inclusion dans la société, leur émancipation, leur autonomie et leur protection contre la pauvreté. En Belgique, la différence de taux d'emploi entre les personnes en situation de handicap et le reste de la population est élevée. C'est pourquoi nous travaillons à la suppression d'obstacles pour amener les personnes en situation de handicap vers l'emploi. Des efforts ont également été déployés pour faire respecter et promouvoir le droit aux aménagements raisonnables ainsi que pour la sensibilisation des employeurs. Au niveau régional, des trajets intensifs ont été lancés pour mener vers des stages et l'emploi avec un accompagnement spécifique en cas de handicap. Le job coaching et les trajectoires de transition pour les jeunes en situation de handicap ont également été développés. Au niveau de la protection sociale, la Belgique a élargi les possibilités de cumuler les revenus du travail avec des allocations afin que les personnes en situation de handicap puissent plus facilement entrer et rester sur le marché du travail sans perdre immédiatement leurs allocations. Un nouvel outil de simulation numérique permet également d'estimer à l'avance l'impact d'une reprise du travail sur les allocations ou les prestations. Par ailleurs, l'esprit d'entreprendre est soutenu. Les personnes bénéficiant d'une allocation de handicap peuvent maintenant plus facilement tester une activité de travailleur indépendant. Il est essentiel de s'attaquer à tous les obstacles, quel que soit le secteur, et d'impliquer les personnes en situation de handicap et les organisateurs de travailleurs et les employeurs dans la mise en place d'un marché de travail inclusif. Je vous remercie.
I thank Madame Lalieu for her statement. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we are close to the end of this meeting. This afternoon at 3 p.m. we shall continue the same agenda item 5 in order to hear the remainder of the speakers of the general debate, starting with Iceland, who shall be the first to speak in the afternoon. Updated list of speakers will be available online before 3 p.m. I would kindly request all delegation and would appreciate your full cooperation by arriving at the venue and taking your seating in advance around 2:50 p.m. this afternoon so that collectively we can assure our meeting will be able to start at 3 p.m. and proceed per scheduled. And as I have mentioned before, we will announce the results of the elections by 3 p.m. With this, I declare the first meeting concluded. Thank you.